Hi, everyone. Today, let's talk economic calendar, and then we'll jump straight into the charts, and then we'll go over my results for the day. If you like trading stocks and options and making money, definitely like and subscribe. I make videos like this every single day, so make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Welcome to the Portfolio Bulletin. Let's get started. Starting off with economic reports. Today, we actually had the federal budget report, which was minus $249 billion, slightly higher than expectations. And I didn't think this was going to matter, but the market did react to this slightly. Of course, it's important to note that when the federal government spends money that they don't have, that does contribute to inflation. We have CPI, CPI year over year, core CPI, and CPI excluding shelter on a 3-month rolling basis. All of this is, of course, going to affect the markets quite a bit, and hopefully you close just about all of your positions unless you are in it for the ride. It's going to be interesting in the morning. I'm sure there will be quite a bit of volatility. And then on Wednesday, we have Jerome Powell's news conference in the afternoon at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And then it doesn't slow down on Thursday. We have initial jobless claims and continuing jobless claims, as well as a couple of manufacturing indexes later in the day. And then to finish up the week, we have manufacturing PMI. All of these manufacturing indexes give an idea of how strong the economy is. And if they continue to be strong, then we should expect the Fed to remain hawkish for longer. I also want to go over JP Morgan's predictions based on CPI data. So the target projection right now is 7.3% for CPI year over year. And based on their prediction, if it comes in at expectations, the markets will be up about 2.5%. If they come out 7.5% or higher, they expect to be down about 3%. Any higher than 7.8%, they expect to be down 5%, and this is on the S&Ps. But the big one here that everyone keeps talking about is if inflation gets down to 6.9%, they expect the stock market to be up 8 to 10%. They only give this a 5% probability, and the biggest probability here is that 7.3% expectation. But even with meeting expectations, they expect the market to go higher. For me, I expect inflation to come out at 7.4, maybe 7.5%. I expect a little bit higher than expectations. I've talked about that before. I think the market is going to go down a little bit tomorrow. And if I had to pick one of these, I would say this is the most likely case in my opinion. They give it a 25% probability, down 2.5 to 3.5%. Moving over to the charts on the 4-hour chart. I did want to start here on the 4-hour just because it shows a little bit more structure. We kind of bottomed here a little bit on December 7th. And since then, we've made a higher low here yesterday and actually kind of rallied here throughout the day right up to resistance at the 55 EMA on the 4-hour chart. And you can see here we actually pushed through this level of resistance that we had going back to the beginning of December, and we rejected off of that same spot here on Friday. And today we pushed through it and closed slightly above it. Jumping down to the 1-hour, you can see really all in the last hour. We had a little bit of a rally throughout the day, really just closing up the gap from the previous big down move that was a little bit out of the ordinary. But that last hour pushed through that resistance up to the 144 EMA here on the hourly, and that's where we paused. So it's worth talking about because if CPI comes out strong, this could certainly push higher. That's why I'm out of the markets, and I want to know what CPI is and get the direction of the markets before I start establishing my new positions. Moving over to the NASDAQ, similar story. We actually gapped up slightly, closed the gap, and tested the lows of the previous day. And then we rallied mostly throughout the day up to that same level, the 144 EMA on the hourly chart. So very similar charts here, right at resistance. And once again, waiting for CPI. Could certainly push higher if CPI is light, but my guess is that it won't. I think CPI is going to be a little bit higher than expectations, and I do expect the markets to move down. But like I said, I don't have any positions, and I'm not willing to take that trade right now. Moving over to the Russell's actually a little bit weaker than the other major indices. Didn't quite get up to that 144 EMA on the 4-hour chart. If we jump down to the hourly, you can see we're still quite a bit below the 144 where we are on the other major indices. We actually did make a lower low versus the others, which had their low on 7 December versus the IWM, which did have a lower low here on 9 December. So the Russell looking a little bit weaker than the other major indices, but of course it could go either way with the CPI. Moving over to IYT on the 4-hour, definitely did not expect this. I expected more sideways price action, and the rally was definitely more than I expected. But if you watch the price action throughout the day, it did look like it might pop at the end of day. But the rally here today on IYT was way out of context. Pushed all the way up to resistance right at that critical point. We have seen this a little bit before. Sometimes indexes like this push up to resistance or drop down to support right before the CPI, because the CPI is obviously going to push the market whichever direction it thinks it needs to go, because the CPI is obviously going to push the market whichever direction the report comes out, regardless of support or resistance. So this is an opportunity for transportation to go higher here if CPI comes out light, or reject off of resistance if CPI comes out higher than expected. Moving over to XOP, did get a little bit of a rally here today. Nothing crazy, just a little bit of a retrace. Covered up Friday and then a little bit of Thursday in terms of that rally. It was pretty oversold here on the 4-hour. You can see we've been oversold all the way since Monday, December 5th. So pretty oversold here. Not surprising we got a little bit of a rally. We did talk about that on Sunday. But this is one of those ones where I don't think CPI matters quite as much. If CPI pushes this up back into this 148 range, I think there's going to be quite a bit of sellers either way, and I would expect XOP to move down regardless of CPI. Moving over to XLK, actually getting above resistance here on the day before CPI, pretty unusual. Also want to highlight here that the MACD is now trending back in the more positive direction. Lighter downward momentum. RSI is moving to the upside here. Of course, we're at the previous high that we've touched on 23 November as well as 15 November, so this could certainly be a level of resistance, more of like a triple top style pattern, and this could definitely push down from here. But once again, a surprising amount of strength here on XLK. Moving over to stocks above their 50-day moving average, we did get a green bar here on the daily chart, but it still looks like it's not going to move any higher than here. We've already been pretty extended to the upside for a while. You can see similar levels to the August high here. And this cross looks like it's going to happen either way on the 21 and the 9 EMAs. If that happens, we should expect at least a little bit of a sell-off in the markets as well as on stocks above their 50-day moving average. Moving over to the dollar here, you can see we've gone sideways. We broke that trend line early this morning. We rallied into the after hours last night, broke through that this morning, and now we're going into sideways chop. We have a low here, which is a slightly higher low from the low on Thursday, but we have a double topping pattern here. We were not able to make a higher low here after breaking through that resistance line. And this is sideways chop. Still waiting for direction. I'm sure CPI will give us direction, but the dollar right now does not have a clear path. And another way that you can see this is when the price action goes through the moving averages multiple times, that's a clear indication that we're going sideways, and there's no respect for any direction of trend. Jumping out to the daily chart on the dollar just for a moment here, you can still see the long-term trend is down, but we have bottomed and created a slightly higher low here. And the MACD is green right now as well. So based on the longer-term charts, I would expect this to go up, but the shorter-term charts are saying sideways. Moving over to JNK, similar story, right at resistance, came up to that critical level right before CPI. Of course, this could go either way. Rejection off of resistance seems likely, but of course, this could certainly break out and make some higher highs if CPI comes in a little light. Moving over to TLT, you see we could have an inside day here. Big red candle on Friday, and then we have a filled in green candle here. So we gapped up and sold off throughout the day, but finished slightly higher than the previous day's close. You can see what that looks like here. Gapped up, sold off throughout the day, but slightly higher than the close here. You can see these moving averages are still pushing us to the down slightly, but we have that 144 EMA here for support. Basically a holding pattern until the reports tomorrow. Moving over to the VIX on the daily chart, you can see here we gapped up massively above that previous resistance and then rallied throughout the day. Of course, we expect volatility to come with the CPI report and the FOMC, so this doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to move to the downside, but it's definitely not evidence that we are going to move to the upside either. This leans to the bear side in my opinion, and either way there's going to be elevated volatility tomorrow. Looking at my positions, this is a call as part of that call spread that I had on the Qs going into Monday. This is going to expire worthless. This was the call I purchased for insurance, and I bought back the call that I sold. You can see here a small profit on my IRA, small loss on my individual account. The markets moved a little bit higher, a little bit faster than I thought that they would. So I lost a little bit of money today, not a lot, and I have no positions going into tomorrow. Clearly waiting for direction, and I want the markets to show me where they're going to go. If you're going to try to trade around the open tomorrow, definitely be nimble. Markets could swing to the upside and to the downside pretty quickly, and there's no saying if either direction is going to hold, at least in the short term. Otherwise, I would wait to take any longer term positions until the afternoon and wait to see what the market is going to do. Of course, we still have the FOMC on Wednesday, and the things that Jay Powell is going to say will affect the markets as well. Let me know down in the comment section what you think the market's going to do tomorrow. Definitely like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video, and make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading tomorrow, and have a great day.